Co? So hello newcomers, we'll start with the next presentation, which is Matej Briškár, and the topic is, maybe you can introduce your topic yourself.
I work at Red Hat, I'm a software engineer and I do work on Windup, so I'm one of the developers of this thing. Today we are going to speak about migrations. I'd like to ask you, do you have any idea what I do mean when I say migration? Do people know? Some of you. Okay. So I actually know at least how to talk. You probably don't think about this one, such migration of migrating all your things to something else. I will not speak about such migrations. We are going to speak about migrations of application server, especially in Java. And I will also speak about JBoss Windup, that is our way to face the problem of migrations. And it's quite a new tool. The first release was done just 1 week ago. And this presentation is probably the first of this kind. So this is really new tool that I'm going to introduce. And it's used by consultants more and more, of course, Red Hat consultants. And that's why I believe it's an interesting topic in case you are ahead of some migration, or you just use some application server and you want to know how tight you are, because we are going to tell you how the migration is going to be hard. Or you're just interested in the topic because since this is developer conference, I'm going to discuss the architecture of Windup, so how do we face the problem. So that's the overview. Firstly, we are going to speak about migrations, so some kind of a story that can bring you to a need of migration. Then we will discuss how do we face the problem, so we will discuss JBoss Windup. We will speak about definitions of what it is and how it can help you. Then, as I said, we will discuss architecture of Windup. So some things that I know since I'm one of the people that developed this. And finally, we will migrate a simple application and we will try to change the behavior of Windup at the end. So let's start with migrations and what it is, how you can happen to need a migration. So imagine that you are this guy, you have lovely green sweater, and it happens that you love Java. And since you love it, you go to conferences like this one to teach yourself and to be the best. And you see a potential in yourself, so you want to build your own company. And here it starts. You will start building your own application, and it always starts with one simple Java class with main method probably. It doesn't end here. You will probably not sell this, otherwise you would be probably really good to sell just one class application. So it gets bigger and bigger. And you will have Java files, XML files, property files, and all such files. And then, in some moment, you will just decide that that's the time for deployment. So you will package all that you have, create a WAR file, and since assume you are using Java EE standards, you can now select Java EE server that you need. It may be Wildfly, but it also may be something else like WebLogic, WebSphere, or Glassfish, TommyE, also choices. So imagine that you also did your choice and it was not wildfly. Now, as it gets bigger and bigger, after some time you will need to maybe need some specifics of the application server, for example, to boost your performance, or you will just like some functionality that is provided by the concrete application server you are using. What will happen with your application? Basically this. You will use the specifics in some code of your application. But in this time, you actually have a problem to change it because you're using the specifics of the application server. And now, imagine that you would like to go open source, you would like to come to Wildfly. And these red lines will forbid you, you will have to change them. Because right now you're not strictly following the Java standards and you can't easily change the application server. So what we are trying to do in the migration is to change the red lines to some kind of grid lines that will be able to run in Wildfly. That's the job of migration, and that's the job of JBoss Windup, because we are here to help you with this. And after you will change this, you could change the application server to Wildfly. So that's migration, and that's the topic we are going to discuss. So what's JBoss Windup? Let's start with some definition. How we can help you. That's our logo. It's a standalone application. You can run it from console, or since we're using JBoss for it, and maybe you have seen that, you can run it from Accolades, NetBeans, or IntelliJ. It will analyze your application, and it will try to report all the places. We are trying to find the red lines and tell you what you should probably do with that in order to change that to green lines. I will show you a simple report. So this is how it looks like after I have run it on some example application. Firstly, there's the first HTML page you will have, all the applications that are reported. And if I will get 1, you will have a number, and this tells you how hard the migration will be. It really depends on your team because, for example, one team is able to do 1 point per day, but also there are teams that can do 10 points per day. So it depends, but it tells you at least how hard it is going to be. Then you will have some kind of a list of all the libraries you're using, and each library will have its points. So for example, I will just check 1. There's a Java class, and we will have several hints that we believe is the red line, so we will need to change it. So that's JBoss Windup. And now we're going to discuss the architecture. Before I will speak about that, I will have some questions after that, and I came to our HR department, so I'm allowed to give you something after some quiz. And the quiz will be based on architecture of Windup, so just so you know. This is more like developer topic right now. So we're going to discuss 3 aspects of architecture. How do we face the problem of migration? And the first one is the thing that Windup doesn't contain a business logic, it doesn't migrate. The only thing it implements an engine so you can run specific rules. So Windup is just some kind of an engine that doesn't need gas, it needs rules, and the rules contain the business logic. The rules are there to scan application, to report the red lines, to give you the report. Everything that is done using the rules. So it looks like this. It will scan all the rules that are provided, and one by one, it will process them. And after it has finished, it will give you the report. That's the basic thing that Windup does. That's the most important thing. And let's speak about rules. As I use them. Rule is some kind of when something is true, then do something else. That's the rule. For example, if it is a jar file, then decompile it. That may be one rule. And such rules may be defined in Groovy, in Java, or XML. However, the XML rules are the most simplest one. You can't program in XML. So that's why the XML rules are just used on the specific migration. So for example, if Java class has this regex, importing this regex, then give it a hint that this is the red line. We will need to change this. But you can do this in Java and GUI. It's just not so clean. It doesn't look so good. Then I will show you one after some time. The rules run in phases. So for example, we have rules that firstly will analyze the application. Just check what it is, check all the files that are there. Then there may be some rules that they compile the application itself. Then another rule that will scan all the Java files and XML files and identify them. Then the migration rules just check Java classes for some regexes, some imports, call of the methods, and then some rules that just do the report, that generate the HTML file you have seen. And right now, you have over 1,000 rules. So that rule is just some simple thing that just does something. So that's the first aspect of Windup. We're using rules. The second one, that the rules that I am speaking about has to communicate. Because there is a rule that scans the application, and there are some other rules that are using the result of previous rules. So they need to communicate in order to be able to do and to have some assumptions about what was done before. And for that, we're using graph. So example again, there is some rule that scans the application, and for each file it will create a vertex in the graph. Then there is another rule that will scan all the vertices, and if the file name ends with the .xml, it will classify the vertex as XML file, etc. And so from the beginning, the graph is just getting bigger and bigger because all the rules are saving the result in the graph. Now, I can show you one rule, for example, that is defined in the Java. To define a rule, you would just need to extend one class. You will tell which phase it is. And right now, I don't specify only one rule. I specify here a rule set, so it's just a set of rules. And in this one, I specify discovery phase, so it's the second phase. And in this one, I can have some assumptions, so some files were discovered, but not all of them. That's why it's discovery phase. And in this one, I will speak about this rule. And this rule started here. And now I'm doing the when part of the rule. And I'm asking especially if there are some files that are directories, then I will iterate over them and I will discover all the subfiles. That's one of 1,000 rules that we have. And you can actually go deeper what exactly how it does. The thing is, when rule will just check the graph, and if it succeeds, all the vertices will be given to some kind of a list that will be processed by the perform stage. So that's just one rule, so you know what I'm speaking about. And the third aspect of our architecture, how do we face the problem of migration and generating the report, is we are using Forge runtime, that is Furnace. If you know what OSGI means, this is something similar, but it's not that complicated. And what we do is, when we start Windup, we are slowly installing modules that are called add-ons. And then you're actually able to create your own add-on with your own rules. So a new add-on will provide all the rules. For example, the rule like I have shown you here. And then you will just install it, and the rules will be provided. So before you will run the windup, you are able actually to change completely what's going to be done. Because you can provide your own rules all over the place. You can have some rules in the first phases, in the last phases, and for example, you can provide functionality to parse property files, because I believe we do not parse them yet. That's it. So that's the three aspects of architecture. The add-ons can communicate. You can use the functionality that is provided by other add-ons. And there is a lot of other add-ons that you can actually install, and they are provided by Forge. Okay, so right now I have a t-shirt of DEFCON. I have something like, okay, yeah, you see that? It's like a medal without having the medal. And I have something that I don't know what's inside. It's just a secret box. It's magical. Okay, no lighting. It's not so magical as I thought. Okay, so if you know what I was speaking about the first aspect, does somebody know what was it? What was the first aspect of JBoss Windup? Who said that? I don't see the hand, so you can pick some of these things, a medal or something. Okay, so nobody. I will have 2 t-shirts. Okay, yeah, the first aspect was it is an engine. So what do you think? Is that a good, what's the good aspect of this? Because we just define the engine and you can specify what's going to be done. You can filter the rules that you don't want to run. For example, I have again example. You can, when we are testing the windup, we can, for example, filter all the providers that are in some specific phase. For example, we don't want to have migration rules. That's a test that's just testing some core functionality, so no reason to generate all the HTML files, etc. And doing this, you can just change whatever is going to be done. You can provide your own rules, you can filter the one you don't need, and you just can completely change what's Windup doing. Okay, is somebody ready for the second question? Okay, does somebody know what was the second aspect of architecture? Yeah. Well, kind of. But I can't give you any of these before if you will not specify what exactly. Okay, the second, I will give you this. But you have to buy your medal. The second one was about the graph. So all the rules are saving the information to the graph, and other rules are reusing the information that was saved. And it's done always. There's no other communication of the rules, maybe just some little specific things that I'm not aware of, but you have to communicate using the database. Okay, I have 3 t-shirts still. So does somebody know what was the third aspect? I need a hand if you believe that you know that. Okay.
So the front end was
Okay. You have a t-shirt. Oh. Exactly. We are using Forge and exactly the front end, so we can redeploy the add-ins and you can specify your own functionality. And now that's time to show you how the migration can be done. For that, I will firstly I have just built Windup, so I'm using the most latest version that we have right now. So I believe it will work, but I'm not sure. And okay, so what I will do now is that I will start the Windup. And what it does here is the front end is starting and it is installing all the default add-ins that we provide. So like there is, for example, a Java add-in that provides all the functionality to parse the Java files. There is some XML add-in that provides the functionality to check for the XML files or that discovers the XML files. There is some add-in that is used just to bootstrap to run the windup. There is also one add-in that just prints the windup. I did it actually, so that's my bird. Okay, now when it's installed, the front end will check for all the commands that you can run. And one of the commands that we provide is windup migrate application. And that command expects you to put their input, so the application you want to migrate. And then you may specify the output folder. And I'm also telling it that I want to override. I don't know, can you see that? I can make it bigger. Yeah, okay. And before I will do it, I'm going to check the application. I will change something. So I will provide a rule that will match all the Java files. And let's say I want to show a hint for this line. So, okay, I definitely need to check. So every time somebody is going to import the context, I'm going to give it a hint that that's a defcon, okay, something with defcon. So you will see that. Here is some kind of an example that I've prepared, but I'm going to change this. So Control C, and that's actually the rule in XML format. And in this rule, I have again when and perform. And in the when clause, I'm using the Java class, and if it references exactly the line I showed you in the location of import, then perform a hint, and hint is exactly that highlighting of one line in the report. And I will put here defconf. And I will give it 100 points. Okay, so that's the rule. I will put it into the folder that is scanned every time when windup runs. So now other thing is you needed, just I will need to change the name because we are checking only for some names. Okay, it needs to end with windup.xml in order to be scanned. And now I will run the report on the example application that we have. And I have provided one XML rule that should change the line. This will take a while. So right now, windup is starting. I don't want to disturb you with this. Okay, it looks like it froze. Okay, it started. And now it's scanning all the rules that are provided. And it started. Right now, I will try to tell you what's happening. It is discovering all the files. I will make this bigger so you can see this. And here it comes. There is a decompile rule that is right now decompiling the application because it's ER that I've provided there. And this will take a few seconds, but still less than a minute. And as you see, you can see, for example, this is the 19th rule of 1100 that we have. And I see there we are discovering property files. That's new for me also. Okay, right now we are analyzing all the Java files. Let's analyze Java file. And now we are doing the migration itself. The most of the rules are done in XML and specify exactly the thing that I have done. So for example, when Java imports something, when Java calls something, when Java file calls some constructor, etc. That's the main part of all the rules we have. And in a second, we are generating the HTML files now from all that we have. There's also some rule that will generate that graph that you have seen, circle one. And that's the last one that's going to be executed. My notebook is quite slow. I should probably show this to my manager. After that, but in this point, we should probably have all the data. We are just generating the HTML file that you have seen before. After a few seconds, I will just refresh the page, and you should probably see our hint if I did everything as it should be. I may try to find these extra rules. That should be the rule that we have created because I did. If I believe I gave it extra rules ID, so that should be the name of our rule that we have just generated using XML. As I said, I'm using the master branch, so I'm not sure somebody didn't put there some. It was not me, definitely. I was preparing for this. Maybe you will just need to believe that it actually really works. I'll just check if we don't have. Yeah, okay, it is here. Even though some HTML files are still being generated, but as you can see, here is test defcom hint as I provided. And so that's actually the rule that was matched and was not matched before. So import Java naming context. That's the hint message, and that's just the highlight of the line. And we put there 100 points. That should be here. As you can see, it's 102. So it's much bigger. It was 2 before. Okay, it's still running. That's actually all. That's Windup, how you can use this. I believe when you will migrate, you will have the facial expression of this guy, so you will be happy, especially when you will use Windup. And before ending, I'd like to ask Ožiska, because we are going to have a lab that in which you will be able to try Windup in more depth, and we will focus on creating rules and deploying our new add-ins, so you can somehow play with us tomorrow. And that's Ožiska Labs, so he can tell you something about that.
Hello, I'm Ondra. I'm okay without it.
We are streaming, so
Okay.
YouTube people.
Hello, YouTube people. Hello. So, hello, I'm Ondra Žižka, and tomorrow I invite you to visit the Windup Lab, which will happen somewhere here, but at the same time as this presentation. And Matej has shown you how to create the basic XML rules, but Windup is actually quite interesting project. We use quite a lot of unusual technologies. We use graph database, as you have seen. We use Forge. We use JBoss modules through Forge. We use various different frameworks, and it's mixed into a nice soup of technologies which work well together. And if you want to see how can you use all these technologies and the rule framework we created to create custom rules based on Java, then come to the lab and try it yourself. I have prepared an interesting, let's say, exercise for you to create a Java-based rule, which will allow you to modify the graph, and you will see the philosophy of how Windup actually works under the hood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions?
Oh yes, I forgot it.
Yes?
Maybe it's worth noting that tomorrow there will be also 2 labs during the whole morning. 2 labs about using Forge and extending Forge with add-ons. Okay? I think Matej will
Yeah, I will tell it for you two people. Okay. Tomorrow there is also a lab about Forge. There are exactly 2 labs, and Cohen is there to provide you with all the details if you need something. So maybe see you there tomorrow also. Any other question about Windup Forge? Yeah.
I have one more question. How far is the development of this tool? Is it ready to be really used for the migration? Is it reliable? When I run it, for example, on a project that runs at the moment on WebLogic, will it detect all the incompatibilities with Java Enterprise Edition? Or do I have to develop myself the rules?
Maybe we are, and that's actually a good question. The question was if Windup is reliable enough to run the migration on yourself, probably. Do you want to answer that? Or I will.
Hello again. Windup is pretty stable, and it is already usable because before Windup 2 there was Windup 1, which we basically rewrote because of the complexity of the rules which could be achieved with Windup 1 was not really too much complex. So we needed to match better patterns, to match more complex patterns, like when you are looking for a class which overrides a method which is actually overriding abstract class which is annotated with some annotation. This is quite complex query for the code and for the bytecode, and you need this Windup 1 wasn't able to do this. So That's the reason for Windup 2.0, complete rewrite. And regarding what it already does, Windup 1 was being used in production, or I mean by at least by Red Hat consultants, and it provided quite useful hints regarding the applications they were facing. Probably Matej mentioned in the beginning that the main, or let's say the original motivation for Windup was that the consultants came to the client side and they needed to know in 5 minutes what's going on. What do they have at hand? They didn't have source code, and even if they did, it would be several megabytes of source code they can't read easily. So they needed a quick and brief summarization of the application. So this is Windup 2.0. I think it covers already almost everything Windup 1.0 could do. And now we have a tool at hand with which we can start creating much more complex rules. And that's where we rely on the community that engineers around the world migrating will, I would say, create new custom rules, either those XML rules or more complex Java-based rules, and share it with the others from community. And that's already ready to be used, if that's your question.
We have currently 1,000 rules. That's quite a lot, and still we can't promise that we will catch all the red lines that you need to change. But if we don't, that's actually a bug, and you should report this. And we believe we will do quite well, and we will help you. At least we can promise that we will help. And is that an answer? Okay. Any other question?
Are there any plans also to migrate configuration from WebLogic to Whitefly?
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Me again. Yes, there is a big plan. It will be, that's a plan for version, let's say 3.0. It will not be too much of features added, but it will be a lot of rules added, because Windup 2.0 is actually planned to, let's say, merge two projects, Windup 1 and Windwrite, which I was working on before, and that project was kind of stopped, and the code base will be used. It will be transferred to Windup rules. But I already have a few, let's say, some coverage of WebLogic to JBoss migration, JBoss 5 to JBoss, or let's say EAP 5 to EAP 6 migration, and others can come as well. Windup is not tied to some particular target platform. You can also use it for migrating whatever you want, if you like.
Thanks.
We probably have still time for a question if somebody. Yeah. Maybe I will know the answer.
How to actually contribute rules? How do I do it?
How you can configure the rule?
No, contribute.
Oh, contribute. Do we have something?
Yes. We have something. Sorry, Matej is the coding guy, and I am the, let's say, organizing guy. So, okay. So regarding contributing rules, we have huge plans, of course, but not many of them are realized. Currently, we were focusing so far on the actual implementation, so we only worked in GitHub. And we didn't, until the release of 2.0, which happened about a week ago, we didn't invite the community to really contribute, because the API was quite unstable anyway. Now we considered it a bit more stable, and you can check the project wiki pages and on GitHub, and you can check the, let's say, tests for the examples on how to do it. I recommend, if you really look at it, I recommend to check the latest tests, because the old tests are examples of how not to do it. And then also, of course, you can contribute to the Windup repository itself, or you can start your own Git repository. Since it's modularized and it's pluggable, you can simply write your own Forge add-on, and then you can contribute it just by pushing it to some Maven repository. and giving people the coordinates of the Maven coordinates of your add-on. And later we will have a kind of, or at least we plan a website which will be kind of repository of this with a database of rules, and with, let's say, you could also share the ideas for the rules, so you don't have to code them yourself. You can just push the rule to the stage of idea, or to the stage of description, or to the stage of, you know, materials like knowledge base kind of, and let the coding for others, or let the testing for others, or and so on. So we will be happy for any contribution in any of those stages. Even ideas are very worth of sharing from you.
Kind of related, maybe. Question: would you be willing, or is this kind of in your scope, to do non-Java migrations? So basically, you know, you can migrate configuration not just between WebLogic and EAP, but you can, you know, anything else.
We currently, of course, we target only Java, and it's kind of natural that a Java-based tool will have more, let's say, means to temper with Java-based applications. But if you, for example, we decompile and then we scan the code. But if you find a Java library, or a library which is compatible with Java API or Forge, to, for example, decompile normal Linux executable files into, let's say, C or C++, and then you have the AST of the C++ based application, then you can write rules which will scan the C++ AST, abstract syntax T. And the same goes for the whole project. We currently work with or we assume as the main project, let's say, driver, it's a Maven for us. And we assume that most of the application we will deal with will be Maven based. But if it's, for example, make based, then nothing really prevents you from parsing make files and actually importing your project based on any other platform into Windup, put it into Graph, its data into Graph, and then migrate it whichever way you want. But we don't have any rules for that.
Just simply said, as I said, we have rules, and you can write still your own rules and do whatever you want. So we do not target it, but it's possible that in the future somebody will try. We are probably out of time. Yeah. That's why. Okay. Thank you again. Thank you.
Diskutovat s kolegama, jsem se ptal, jestli si mi něco z toho nevím. Jak jsi se ptal na ty otázky první?
Ano, tak tam jde o to, že tam je ten engine, ale celá ta logika, celá ta práce
Is this your first talk here, like this year, or you already have one in the morning?
Just right. It was just a starting to be here.
Otázku šlo, alebo
Jo, to taky, ale jako šlo mi o to, že se mi to zdálo zajímavé a tomuhle jsem nerozuměl, jak si tam budeme popisovat. Já si myslím, že asi někdy se spíš ozvu, protože nám by se tohle hodilo hrozně pro naše architekty, který nechtějí zasahovat do kódu, ale chtějí nám tyhle věci připravovat. Takže jako je to asi dobrý nástroj pro to, možná se kontaktuju někdy.
Máme IRC channel, ktorý je na Freenode, tam sme akoby, že instantne, ale máme toto. Neviem teraz, aká je taká tá hlavná kontaktná adresa.
Jo, to je jedno, to je jenom druhý znám.
Alebo kľudne na môj e-mail.
Jo, v pohodě, tam se určitě zeptal.
Is there a place where I can get water?
Water?
So the contributing is actually, I would say it's one little big example after we fix all the bugs and so on for 2.0.
Quite extensive.
Well, we didn't. The thing is, the task we are doing the task from business, and the same goes for the control nodes. So all of the steps here. Yes. But regarding the exhaustion and all the other servers, it's only a matter of